Hey, RetconRaider here. At this point it should be obvious that I enjoy talking about turn-based strategy games and role-playing games, especially ones that I've backed through crowdfunding campaigns. So that begs the question, why haven't I talked about Battletech by Harebrained Schemes? Well, I've backed every Harebrained Scheme crowdfunding project so far, and Battletech is no exception. I just haven't talked about it yet because, well, to be perfectly honest, I'm just not that familiar with the setting. Battletech is an incredibly deep, rich setting that's almost older than I am. It's a setting that's been expanded upon by literally hundreds of tabletop sourcebooks and novels since it first came out in 1984. And that's not even getting into things like television shows, card games, video games, and so on. I've only got a passing familiarity with all that lore, but I suppose it would hardly be the first time I've talked about a subject I only have a loose grasp on, so let's at least take a look at the game we'll be receiving later this year. We'll call this A Layman's Guide to Battletech, Harebrained Schemes Edition. So, what is Battletech? Well, to put it simply, Battletech is an incredibly detailed science fiction setting that takes place roughly 12 centuries in the future. Humanity has spread out into the stars, eventually colonizing thousands of planets. And although they never discovered any signs of extraterrestrial life, such a wide sprawling empire has led to the development of numerous distinct planetary cultures, eventually giving rise to great noble houses, each of whom now contests the others for domination of the galaxy. As time passed, these noble houses found more and more creative ways to destroy each other, eventually culminating in the development of the massive battle mechs that now make up the bulk of their armies. Battle mechs are essentially enormous armored weapon platforms, each one weighing over 100 tons and carrying enough firepower to burn a small town to the ground. And each one piloted by a single, highly trained mech warrior. Although the noble houses also make use of armored infantrymen, fleets of armed and armored vehicles, and other conventional weaponry, it's these battle mechs that often turn the tide. And that brings us to the heart of the setting, the warfare. From its humble beginnings as a board game in the 1980s, Battletech has always been primarily focused on simulating combat between armies of giant robots. And the new video game adaptation by Harebrained Schemes is no exception. The Battletech video game is focused on turn-based tactical combat, meant to help simulate your average squad-level skirmish between robotic forces. The game takes place in a period where the noble houses have formed an uneasy truce, but still actively plot against each other, making use of third-party intermediaries to fight their battles and push forward their agenda while still maintaining some semblance of plausible deniability. This is where the player will come in. The game's main campaign has the player take command of a small mercenary company situated near the periphery of the inner sphere. Your job is to keep your mercenary company running by taking on shady jobs offered by the various noble houses, and to then use those profits to further expand your operation, so that you can start taking on even bigger, more dangerous jobs. As the game progresses, you'll raise funds to upgrade your dropship, the Argos, as well as hire and train new mech warriors. You'll purchase chassis for new battle mechs and fit them with better gear that you either purchase or salvage from the battlefield. Eventually, you'll presumably have to choose sides in the war between the noble houses, drawing you through the main storyline. But so far we know very little about that. But just because there's a main storyline doesn't mean that the player will be forced to follow it. Because the campaign reached its third major stretch goal, there will be a variety of procedurally generated contracts offered by both major and minor noble houses, allowing the player to continue building their mercenary company for as long as they want. And if the player is just looking for some quick and brutal mech-on-mech action, then there's also a skirmish mode that will support both single-player and multiplayer battles. Of course, the one thing that all these play modes have in common is the combat, so let's spend some time talking about that. Battletech is, of course, heavily focused on turn-based tactical combat between massive mechs. In battle, the player will generally control a lance of 4 battle mechs, which they will direct against an assortment of enemy mechs and vehicles. The average battle will last roughly half an hour, theoretically allowing a player to finish multiple battles during an average play session. Much like the original tabletop game it's based on, the Battletech video game will allow you to customize your mechs with different loadouts, fine-tuning them for different strategies. You'll be able to build fast-moving scouts, slow and plodding long-range artillery mechs, heavily armored mechs designed for close-quarters combat, and more, as long as you can properly balance out your heat levels and keep your mech from overheating and shutting down in mid-battle. Once battle has been joined, the game settles into a phase-based initiative system. Each turn is broken into 5 phases, and in each phase a specific category of mech or vehicle will get to activate. The lighter the mech, the sooner it will activate, potentially providing an invaluable advantage over slower, heavier mechs. Of course, if you don't want to go first, you can use the game's reserve system, which will allow you to delay a mech's turn to a later phase, giving you a chance to see what your opponent is doing before you commit to your own action. Beyond that, there are numerous tactical considerations in battle that will be familiar to most veterans of the setting. Location damage can reduce the functionality of individual limbs or weapon systems, or sometimes even destroy them completely. Excessive damage can also cause a mech to lose stability and come crashing to the ground, making them an easy target for follow-up attacks. Positioning and flanking will both be vital, since you'll often find yourself outnumbered by the foes you face. Height and terrain advantages are both also present in the game. And, for the particularly daring mech warriors or robo-jocks, melee combat is in the game, allowing you to rush a foe and potentially devastate them with massive body blows. Or, of course, the infamous death from above, where you leap right onto your opponent with your jump jet system. These maneuvers can be risky, but when they work they can be spectacularly effective. And that's not even getting into the mech bay features, which will allow you to alter your battle mech's equipment loadouts, or the pilot mechanics that will allow you to train up individual pilots with their own specialized skills and abilities, which can influence how their mech performs on the battlefield. Suffice to say that they're trying to fit as many of the classic mechanics into the game as they can, which makes sense given that the lead designer on this Battletech video game is Jordan Weissman, the original creator of the Battletech franchise. Harebrained Schemes Battletech is tentatively planned for release sometime before the end of the year, though there's always a chance it might end up being pushed back into 2018. However, as of this week, the backer beta has been released, allowing interested players to check out the combat system. Now, there are a few things to keep in mind before you get too excited. First, the backer beta is obviously not the complete game. For the moment, it's just the single-player Skirmish mode with pre-made battle mechs and a small pool of pre-made pilots to choose from. You can control some aspects of the skirmish battles, but there are currently no multiplayer options, and you can't access the mech bay to customize your mechs. However, as the beta process continues, they'll be adding in additional features for us to test, such as the multiplayer component. But it's important to understand that things like the Mercenary Story campaign are not planned for the beta. We won't get to play with those features until the game is fully released. It's also important to understand that the backer beta is only being offered on the Steam platform, and only for a limited amount of time. The crowdfunding campaign is obviously long over, but you can still get in on the backer beta by visiting the official website for the game, where there are some limited options for pre-ordering. There are 3 different versions of the pre-order available, most offering various digital rewards that were also offered during the Kickstarter campaign. And if you pre-order at the $60 tier, then you'll also receive access to the backer beta. Is it worth pre-ordering the game just to get access to the backer beta? Well, I can't really answer that for you. It depends on how much you like turn-based tactical combat with giant robots, and how much you like the Battletech system in general. But for me, well, let me put it this way. I only stopped playing the backer beta because I had to work on this video. In fact, let's take a quick peek to see how I'm doing.
Confirmed.
Aha! How did you like that? What?
Crap, that shot went internal.
No!
Ah, damn it! I took one in the meat.
Well, maybe if
I'm receiving you.
My last mech is overheated. Guess I'll just have to pass my turn to vent the heat.
Confirmed. Holding and cooling.
So now... Oh, come on! Well, clearly I need to spend some more time practicing. So for now, this is RetconRaider signing off. Thanks for listening. Oh, and remember, although I do love talking about, and playing, Battletech, you can keep up with all the latest news about the game by visiting the official website and the official crowdfunding campaign on Kickstarter. Links are in the description.